Welcome to East by West Farms. Here we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Today I'm going to show you what is growing in the greenhouse in December. We bought this greenhouse last year, and we only had the raw soil over here. So this winter is actually the first winter that we were actively growing things over here. We bought this cheap greenhouse from Amazon. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a huge wind and then the greenhouse collapsed. You see here that I built all these trellis using the ash juniper branches. The idea is that these branches basically create an internal structure that support the greenhouse so that it make it more sturdy against the wind. This can double up as trellis for growing things like tomatoes and other things. In front of me is a tomato plant that is start to blooming, and papaya plant that I just transplanted. It was grown from seeds, but for papaya, supposedly is in 8 months it can start to produce. Hopefully, we don't get a lot of freeze temperature or very long freeze temperature. Usually, we just get 1 or 2 days right below freeze. And inside of the greenhouse, then that should be okay. Papaya, of course, is a tropic plant. We may have to heat up the greenhouse if the weather gets really bad. So far, it's growing pretty well. I just transplanted this yesterday, so it's a little bit drippy, but looks good. The tomatoes are I transplanted them like maybe 2 months ago. This one established root and start to setting flowers. We haven't had our first frost yet, and this seems to be growing well inside the greenhouse. I hope it will continue to grow, and we may get some fresh tomato during winter. In this patch here, we have some green onions. These are grown from the cuttings. So basically, I buy a bunch of green onion from Walmart and cut the top off for cooking, and then bury the lower 1.5 inch or so in the soil. They have been established pretty well, and over here you can see that I harvested yesterday for cook with the duck meat. That was very good. This I probably today will harvest them, and they inside the greenhouse they grow faster than outside, so they will push out new growth, and probably in 2 or 3 weeks we can harvest it again. Here is a pepper plant that it was in here during summer, but it didn't grow too much because probably was too hot, and also the soil was not very good. Now it's actually have a nice fruit and have lots of flowers. Hopefully we can keep this continue to producing through the winter. Here is a small cutting of winter spinach. Winter spinach is like warm weather. It's out of season outside of the greenhouse, but over here they actually start growing pretty well. I have another big patch in the other place. This one just started sprouting. So you can see that I still have some weed in here. The idea is to use the water spinach as ground cover. So they will grow, basically cover the whole plant, the field, and that way that will choke out the wheat. A lot of time you don't have lots of green vegetable. So this is my first experiment to grow water spinach inside the greenhouse, and to see we can have a continuous supply of water spinach during winter. This is a turmeric plant that we planted in spring from the turmeric roots that we bought in the grocery store. It's been growing pretty well. The leaves get all shredded by the big wind, so it looks a little bit bad. You can see the sprout, the new sprout coming in. So after we put on the top, they seems like better. They like the humid and also warm. We have lots of roots down here already. And yesterday I actually harvested one piece of root for cooking. This is something that if I can keep it through the winter, I can continue to come here and harvest the fresh turmeric root. This plant seems doing very well inside the greenhouse. Here is a wax gourd. Of course, this is a summer plant, and we got quite a few wax gourd from this plant. I cut it all the way back to want to experiment to see if I can keep it through winter and whether it will produce during winter inside the greenhouse. The leaves looks a little bit or pretty get chewed up because we had some cool night before we put the top on. I can see that it start to kind of shooting out new leaves after we put the top on. Even if it doesn't produce a gourd during winter, it might provide a good ground cover, and it produces lots of organic material that we can use as compost. Here are two cedar elms that I grow from cuttings. They seem to be established pretty well. These are deciduous trees that are supposed to go through dormancy, so they shouldn't stay inside the greenhouse. But since this is the first year established here, I will leave them here and let them go through winter here. Then next year, I will dig them up and plant it outside. We have been in this farm for almost 2 years now. One of the biggest problem we have is that we have very strong wind around this time, and it's really not very pleasant. So we decided that we want to build some hedges to as a windbreaker. So of course that would require lots of trees, and if we buy those trees, that could cost lots of money. So what I'm going to do is experiment on growing trees from cuttings, like cedar elm is very easy to grow from cuttings and the others, and then get my trees that way, and then let them grow in the field to serve as a windbreaker. What I have in my hand is a baby ginger plant that I accidentally poured it out. This patch over here are the gingers I planted in spring. They didn't grow quite a lot. They're still pretty short because ginger like sandy soil. Here is very heavy clay, and this is very raw material. It's not garden soil. It's just the native clay over here. The good thing is they actually are still alive. So what that means is as the soil gets better, they will grow better. Inside the greenhouse, this probably will help them to send out a new shoot like this, and then I can plant it along the greenhouse to get more ginger plants. Down here are the water spinach that I transplant them probably maybe 1 or 2 months ago, just from cuttings. This area probably is because it's in the south side, and it's actually already grown pretty well and cover the ground, and so there's no weed down underneath it. They just choke out the weed. It's a very nice ground cover. I will let them grow a little bit more before I start to harvest them. So we will have fresh water spinach in the middle of winter. In this patch here, we use, last year we grew some Celtuce, and now I can see that a few Celtuce sprouted probably from the seeds that was dropped. I transplanted some sweet potato over here, and the idea is to see if I were able to keep the sweet potato through winter inside the greenhouse. It had some damage. I can see that it's shooting out new shoots from here, from the vines. If we continue this warm temperature, probably this will take off very soon. I also have one bean plant over here. I think the chicken come in and they ate most of it, but it looks like it's recovery. It's an experiment to see if I can grow beans in winter. The idea is to try to grow warm season vegetable inside the greenhouse, and if the weather collaborates, we might get beans and tomatoes and peppers through the winter. In this big pot, we have quite a few things. Of course, the big pot is for the avocado that grown from the avocado pit, from the avocado that we ate, and we saved the pit and got an avocado tree. Avocado, of course, have a big taproot, so that's why it's in a big pot over here. Then we have a few parts of kind of bonsai jade tree, but they look pretty miserable now because we forgot to bring them in when the weather was cold. They should recover. These are actually survived through the inside, of course, through the last winter. They are still under the recovery stage. Over here, a big bowl of dirt. There's a sapote pit that buried in there. I can see that it's already start to kind of pushing out. I don't know how long it's going to take it to eventually push out and give me a sapote plant. That's the tour of the greenhouse at the end of November. One last thing I want to point out is you'll notice this walkway that I have been working on. In Texas, especially in winter, we actually get lots of rain, and sometimes this area could be flooded, and of course the plants don't like it. By digging this walkway here, one is that I need a way to get around the greenhouse, and another thing is you notice the walkway is actually sunken underground. So what that is essentially give me a raised bed on both sides of the walkway, and when we get rain, if we got too much water, the walkway is kind of act like a swale that will collect the water and seep the water down so that the plants can use it when we don't have rain. In this video, I give you a tour of the greenhouse. We have lots of tropical plants and warm season plants growing in the greenhouse. The idea is that we can continue to produce the vegetable that we like inside of the greenhouse even in winter. We will have fresh turmeric, fresh ginger, fresh peppers, and fresh tomatoes, and also water spinach. That would make the greenhouse a worthwhile investment. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. If you have not done so, please hit the subscribe button to follow our journey with the East by West Farms.